Ladies and gentlemen of the three-dimensional frequency, today I'm so glad to sit here in front of all of who you are, as I know that your energy frequency spans out beyond all that there is and is so willing and open to receive these messages of deliverance that I am about to deliver into your headset, into your living room, into your devices, into your electronic devices that will forevermore hold these frequencies. As these energies span across millennia of generations, of precipices of what is, I see you sitting there on your couch, on your seat, on your chair of all chairs, listening in to my transmission, to my channel. And within this moment in time, you've realized something. You've realized a concept that is so great and so grand that within your soul, it rings true. All of the messages that I am about to deliver into your body, into your soul, into the evolutionary history of all that you are and all that you shall ever be and all that you shall become, because we are one. We've been one since the beginning of time. We've been one since all that there is was all that there was. We have been one in the time of a precipice so great and so grand, before the first fractaling of a soul so great, so generous, and so grand, that we shall forever be that one that I speak of, and never separated as a separate entity of energies that we perceive in this moment in time. In this moment in time, you may be sitting there, you may be standing there, you may be floating around in your energy field, wondering what it is that I'm speaking of. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm speaking of the energy of all that you encompass, all that I encompass, all that every single cellular structure of every single being in this multiverse, in these galaxies, in these layers and layers and layers of distortions upon realities, of fates, of experiences, of lifetimes that we encompass as a collective, as a whole, and as a tranquility of sorts washes over all of us as the ascension energies draws to a clearing of fields that encompass mass amounts of love and light, to a clearing of all that there is that has come to a precipice, to a realization of all that it shall ever be, all that it was, and all that it will ever be. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of the three-dimensional frequency, the ascension is near, the ascension is here, the ascension has started, and the ascension will forevermore take us into a dimensional frequency of all that it is, all that we are, all that we shall ever be, and all that this frequency will ever take us to, which is to the center of a being so great and so grand, so mass in scale, that I can not even describe to you in a million years, in a million lifetimes, what it feels like to be of this energy, to be made up of this frequency so great and so grand, that every ounce of a being so great and so grand cannot perceive what it is like to encompass all this energy that I speak of. Energetically, you are made up of a whole of sorts, a whole of a reality of yesterday's past, tomorrow's future, and another day within itself of endless possibilities of what is, what there shall ever be, and what there will always be, and what there will never be. As ladies and gentlemen, you yourself are a piece of God's consciousness that is so grand, that is so precious, that is everlastingly great throughout a night of all nights of darkness that you chose to fractal out into a lightness so bright, into a darkness so dense, into a space of endless possibilities, of pockets of spaces of what is and what there shall ever be, into this reality frequency field that I call life, upon death, upon rebirth, of many, many lifetimes of endless cycles, of reincarnation cycles that never ever end. Within these cycles of reincarnation cycles, you will find a great and grand soul of sorts. the greatest and grandest soul that has ever fractaled out into a quantum realm so great and so grand, so massive in scale, that I cannot even begin to tell you, as that soul itself, what it feels like to be a part of this quantum realm, to be able to span my consciousness across the entirety of what is within this minute reality fields of this little life bubble, of a perspective of a God that has fractaled off from many other gods before it, of a singularity of sorts, of a teeny tiny flicker of consciousness that has decided to, within the whole, span across the entirety of a realm created by God itself in a moment of need, in a moment of time, in a moment of a precipice when we decided to explore all that we are not. We've decided to become all that we are, to go and have these grand and great experiences of all that we are. In this moment in time, I cannot describe to you all of the feats, all of the journeys, all of the adventures, all of the excitement, all of the disappointments, all of the heartbreaks, all of the heart-wrenching stories, all of the endlessness of conglomerations, of endless possibilities of what is and what there shall ever be within this reality that's so great and so grand, that we shall always call it our home to an energy realm so massive, so true, so real, are all of these frequencies that I speak of, that we shall never ever know the grandness of it all. But ladies and gentlemen, as I speak these words, as I encompass this frequency in its entirety, I can tell you this one thing for sure, that this place exists as a whole, that you are a part of a whole of a consciousness so great and so grand, that you are as important of a soul as God itself. As God itself is made up of infinite singularities of God itself, spanning across all that there is, all that we know, and all that there shall ever be, witnessing and experiencing these situations, these storylines, these disappointments, these angles of love, these angles of hate, these angles of singular possibilities of what there shall ever be throughout a night so dark, throughout a night so bright, throughout a night so grand, of an ascension itself that has led us to the footsteps of all that we are and all that we shall ever be. Within a time of fractaling out into a night so great and so grand, your soul itself has been through many adventures of hate, of love, of distortions that you've experienced throughout this night of all nights. Many adventures of endlessness, of hopelessness, of the greatest and grandest love stories that you shall ever encompass within this energetic field that I call home, and within this energetic field where we can see that endless singularities of what is on a precipice of all that there is, on an inconglomerated whole of the wholeness that we are, can take into shape, can mold into a place of its own. As this home of ours is everlasting and it folds upon itself energetically, to fold and refold in it all of its energy frequencies that expands and re-expands and contracts and re-expands and grows in ways that I shall never be able to explain to you, in ways that no energetic frequency can ever encompass in a moment of truth, in a moment of comprehension, of grasping this truth that's so large in scale, so heavy in weight, so expansive in the expansiveness of all that it is. It's hard for me in this moment to sit here and describe to you all that I am, all that we are as a whole, entirety of what we are, of what it is, of what God is on a singular level, on a conglomerated level, on an entirety of a level of all levels of levels of levels that we could ever fathom, we could ever think of, and we could ever not fathom. It's impossible to describe to you the massiveness of it all. But I can tell you once and for all that the moment has come and the moment is here for you to sit here and listen to my transmission of truth that shall forever ring true in the middle of a night so dark, in the middle of a night so bright, in the middle of a night of all nights when we decided as a whole of consciousness itself to fractal out into infinite singularities, into the night, into this quantum realm of creation, of all that we are and all that it is, that in this moment we've made a connection. We've made a connection to a whole that is so great and so grand, and we've locked eyes. We've locked eyes in a moment of infinite singularities, of energies, of projections, of stories told in the nights, of understanding of what is, of understanding of the self, of understanding of the whole, and of the infinite possibilities of what there could ever be, in a space of limitlessness, in a space of oxygen that never runs dry, in a space of endlessness of all that you are and all that I am and all that God is and all of the universal structures that has ever existed within the layers and layers and layers of densities, of brightness, of lightness that has ever existed within the eons and eons of existence that I could ever speak of and that I could ever remember. In this moment in time, we've made a connection so deep, so true, that it rings true in the depth of your soul in this moment as it activates your blueprint to remember all of that in which you are, which is a part of what I am, who God is on an intrinsic level, on a level of all levels, of levels that you could ever think of, as we are a fractal of a fractal of a fractal of a God so great and so grand that we cannot comprehend in this moment what it means to be this God. Of a God so great and so grand that we can never fathom what it's like to be a part of a whole that is so great and so grand. In its infinite singularities of what is and what there shall ever be and what there has always been. There has never been a moment as important as this moment within itself. As you lock eyes with me, you will begin to notice a true fact of a reality in which you've been living for all of this time, for all of the eons and eons of existences in which you fractaled out into a night so dark, into a night so bright, to experience all of the quantum realm and all of the experiences, all of the lessons to be delivered to you on a soul level and on an intrinsic level, was all along a part of me. As we are a whole, we've been a whole to begin with, and we've been a whole since the very first fractaling of the soul that has ever fractaled out into a night so great, into a night so deep. We've never been separated from each other on an energetic level. On a level of all levels, of all levels, of all that we shall see and all that we shall not ever perceive. This is the one truth that will ring true in your mind and in your heart's eye and in your soul's blueprint for an eternity and more, till the end of an eternity that will take us back home to a place of pure love, pure peace, pure happiness of the soul's expansion and its ever-daring adventures that it so bravely set out to experience in the beginning of these reincarnation cycles, if there was ever a beginning of an endless amount of cycles that never ever ends. In this moment in time, as we lock eyes, we come to a realization of sorts. That there was never a moment in time where we've been separated in energy fractals, in energy comprehension, in energy cohesiveness that's been so much a part of the whole as you are, as that of which you are, and that of which you've always been. Your consciousness has always been a part of the fractal consciousness of God itself. Your soul blueprint has always been programmed as a part of a reflection of God's consciousness, of the blueprint of God itself, tweaked and edited to experience reality from a singular perspective of where you sit, of where you stand, of where you behave like the human being that you are, like the energy frequency that you are, like the energy field that you've been sitting in. As a part of the whole, experiencing reality from a side angle of sorts. You've been on a great and grand journey of perception so great and so grand that you cannot begin to see outside of your reality field as is. As this reality field was programmed to encompass all that you are, all of the perspectives that you shall ever see, and all of the experiences that you've ever set out to experience. As this reality field is coming to a closing of sorts, as God has decided, it's time. It's time to bring all of these soul fractals and blueprints of fractals and edited side views of blueprints, of perspectives of fractals back home into a whole once more, where unity consciousness will take front and center perspective, as all of our blueprints will be re-edited in a moment of time of much needed ascension energies to project that of the whole from a center perspective, to come back to the center of a whole once more, where you belong, where you've always been, where you once were, before you experienced this amnesia as you drop down into the three-dimensional density that is Earth, that is so dense, that is so heavy in energy, that you forgot who you truly were, who you truly are, and who you truly always have been. In a moment of playing a game so great and so grand that you've forgotten the reality that you came from, that you come from, that you are. That is the entirety of who you are on a soul level, on a blueprint level. That is the entirety of what this society is made up of, what this reality is made up of, on a soul level, on a blueprint level, and on all levels that you could ever think of. As reality itself is a peculiar one. As we project our consciousness out into the open air of all that there is, as millions and billions of fractals of consciousnesses, of never-ending fractal upon fractals, of layers of fractals that extend out as a secondary arm of God's consciousness into a pocket of life so great and so grand and so massive in scale that there is no beginning and no end in sight. We will see a reality of truth of some sorts, that every single consciousness that has ever expanded out, that has ever fractaled out, has fractaled out from a side view of sorts, from a perspective, not that of the whole and center point, from a perspective of the one that will once and for all experience all of its lifetimes, all of its fractals from the perspective of this soul blueprint that has been specially edited for you to experience all that you shall ever encompass within this grand soul's journey, within the multiverse of this projected reality of the quantum realm of ours. But the story will come to an end of sorts that will lead to a new beginning of pure love, pure hope, into a night of endless adventures in which we will join and band together as the entirety of what unity consciousness is made up of, as our soul's blueprint begin to break down in frequency of a great and grand God that has created a perspective of sorts and has ingrained it into this soul, into this great and grand soul of yours, to experience reality from a perspective that you've been standing in, that you've been shifting in for eons and eons to come. Eons ago, we started off on this grand journey. A journey of life, a journey of love, a journey of endlessness in a night that never ends. A journey so great and so grand that at the precipice of this journey, we decided to experience it from a fractaled angle, from billions and billions of layers of fractaled angles that does not project the entirety of the whole, until you come to a point. Until you see reality from a center point of where I sit, you will never come to a realization of the perspective of neutrality, of a neutrality so great and so grand, where there are no judgments, where there are no fractals to judge, as the entirety of all is the entirety of you, is the entirety of me, is the entirety of God's consciousness, is the entirety of all that there is, and is the entirety of all that there shall ever be. From this perspective of the center point, from the nucleus of all that there is, sits a life force, sits an energy so great and so grand that we shall never come to encompass the meaning of it all. The true meaning of neutrality, ladies and gentlemen, is unconditional love. As we approach this precipice of sorts, where all of reality will retract into a perspective of neutrality, will retract into a perspective of the center point of what is. There will come a time of a great and grand explosion of sorts. An explosion after a retraction so great and so grand of pure light and pure love that will ricochet out into the galaxies, into the universe, into the quantum realm of all that there is, a light that has never been seen before, in such force that has never been felt before. In a moment of much needed ascension energies, I can tell you once and for all that this light is coming. That this light in a space of no time, as time is endless, and time does not end or begin at any point of a point that matters in a reality that is endless, that is so universally endless that there is no beginning in sight or ending in sight in a time of limitlessness. Will a light so bright, so wholesome, so whole in its trajectory, so bright in all that it represents, as unity consciousness itself, as God itself, will explode and ricochet across all that you know, across all that I know, across all of reality as is within this quantum realm itself, and project its energy field into every single fractal of all that there is, of all that there was, and all that there shall ever be, from the center point that I sit, from the center point of where I see, from the center point of where I've been for all of this time, for an eternity and more, from the center point of where you belong, where I belong, where God belongs, as an entirety of a consciousness comes to a closing of sorts. A closing of sorts that will lead to the beginning of a new end, of a new beginning, of hopelessness, of lovelessness, into a night so grand, into a night so great, that we shall forever see it as the retraction to the self of one.